I was born and raised in El Paso, Texas, the real West Texas, for those of you who don't know. I grew up in a single-parent household. My mother had her first child at 15, and her highest level of education was a GED. Because of that, her job opportunities were limited, so my mom did what any single woman trying to provide for her child would do. She became a construction worker. She worked as a roofer for most of my upbringing until one fateful day. When I was in the 7th grade, my mother was involved in a car accident that left her disabled. She lost her job, and with the loss of income came the loss of living arrangements. It was a really tough transition. I had watched my mom climb up a 2-story ladder in her baby pink hard hat, carrying buckets full of heavy equipment, to her not being able to button her own pants. We were homeless. We applied for Section 8 and food stamps, but it took months before we were approved for either. We spent that time living with family members, and for a while, we were living out of that same car my mother was driving during the accident. Once we were approved for government assistance, life got a little better. We had a roof over our heads and food to eat, but we still had no real source of income. It took my mom 3 tries and 7 years to get approved for disability. All of her caseworkers and judges collectively agreed that she was too young to be disabled. It didn't matter that her injuries affected the way she stood and walked, sat. She wasn't able to lift anything, and her thinking abilities were a little rough around the edges after that accident. So for those 7 years, we were alive, but it didn't really feel like we were living. Like I said, we had a roof over our heads and food to eat, but we couldn't afford to buy things like toilet paper or toothpaste, soap, laundry detergent, shampoo, and conditioner. We couldn't afford to buy any of the little necessities in life. As of last year, my mother is finally considered a disabled body, and we're just now starting to receive some of that Social Security income. Just because her case was solved doesn't mean that car accident that happened 8 years ago doesn't still impact me. My mother was left traumatized. She has a fear of driving and being in cars, and because of that, I've never learned how to drive. Most kids in the United States for their 16th birthday get a car, and I have still yet to touch a gear shift. It's an unfair disadvantage that I have no control over. Because of my inability to drive, coming out to Lubbock for school is difficult, and finding suitable living arrangements is even more challenging. I'm in a handful of clubs and student organizations that usually require me to be on campus outside of normal bus operating hours. And my scholarships and grants have mostly paid for my school tuition, but the scholarships that I have received from the donors in attendance today has helped me stay alive. I was able to put that scholarship money towards on-campus housing and a meal plan. And if it wasn't for that assistance, I'm pretty sure I would be starving like I was last year. I don't know how I would continue to enhance my education if I still had the burden of those worries slowly eating away at me. So I would like to thank the donors in this room for everything they've done and everything they everything they continue to do from the bottom of my heart. Your contributions, big and small, make huge differences in all of our lives. I wouldn't have had the opportunities to make such great friends and meet great faculty if it weren't for these scholarships, the donors, and Dr. Perlmutter. I wouldn't be here without these opportunities, and I felt for you all to understand how these scholarships have impacted my life, you would need to know my story first. So this is just one last thank you to everyone in attendance today. Thank you for being here, thank you for your donations, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your luncheon.